Hello everybody, Tyler Edlin here, and in this week's episode, we're going to be looking at some portfolios. Now, as my own personal background, I have been working professionally for about 12 years now. I teach in a few different online schools. I look at a lot of bodies of work. I look at a lot of students' work. I have my own students working in various types of AAA studios all over the world. So I have somewhat of a perspective on this, but it's not a be-all, end-all. There's always exceptions. What I say is not absolute, and it just comes from my own personal experience. So with warning, take it with a grain of salt. All right, let's go. Now, I did request a few weeks ago in the community section on my channel to drop your portfolios and, of course, any questions. There's a handful of them. I'm not guaranteeing that I'm going to get to them all. And the other kind of caveat with that is I do want to see a portfolio that is a curated body of work. I want to avoid any general Instagram links because Instagram is not a portfolio. It's just whatever you're posting. So I'm probably going to avoid that. And I'm not going to be critiquing individual images or aspects of your work. It'll just be the work as a whole. And so before we begin, there's a lot of things I'll be repeating or a lot of core sort of principles that I personally have and find in really good portfolios, and I just want to go over those in what I'm calling the pillars of a great portfolio. And of course, this is just my personal opinion. First up, consistency. That is a word I'll be repeating many of times here, and it's specific things with consistency. I think preferably quality and style can have a lot of weight in a portfolio. I'll get into the specifics of style because I saw that question come up in a little down the road, but just having a certain kind of vibe and feel to your work can go a huge way. For an example, let's look at Adna Joy's work. Do you see there's just a certain very evenness to the work? It's almost in a way predictable in a sense that if we were to hire Adna for a specific role or job based off this body of work here, I could be pretty sure what I'm going to get. And that's a good thing because that means, Adna's a very safe bet. And art directors in general, they don't want to be surprised. Every time they have to hire an artist, right, they're expending resources, they're potentially spending time and money, so they want to be sure what they're going to get. And I think Adna's work's a great example of that. All right, so for number 2, theme. And kind of specifically, I'm referring to genre, something whether it's fantasy, sci-fi, maybe it's history, maybe a certain narrative element. So maybe you're telling the certain beats of a story or something. That body of work could make up a good portfolio. Or maybe it's subject matter. Maybe it's spaceships. Maybe it's military craft, gadgets, and props. Whatever the case is, if you have a body of work that is thematically related and you have that consistency of quality across it, we're double stacking those bricks into making very good choices for the body of work we select for the portfolio. And as an example of this, let's look no further than my good friend Adam Duff, right? Like genre-wise, right, we got fantasy. More specifically, we have dark fantasy. And all the work, his body of work, is tied together that way, and it just makes every individual piece sort of have a stronger impact when they can kind of lean on each other and they're all playing on the same team, if that makes sense. This isn't an absolute, and I think by far most artists don't have as narrow of a scope in regards to the overall body of work here, but by gosh, when it really is together like this, it just works really well. And I would say to his advantage. And what that starts to do on the back end is that, like, when someone sees a work like Adam, if they're looking or thinking of a fantasy artist or that guy that does the dark brooding monsters, the dark soul sort of style, his name would instantly kind of come up, on a Rolodex, whether it's virtual or just in somebody's head. He would be someone that comes to mind because the work stands strong. Comparatively, it could be bit more broad, like environments or creatures, right? Like there is a certain theme in the work that's associated with the name of the artist, and that's always a good thing. Moving on, we have craftsmanship. I think this is going to go without say in any body of work, any portfolio, is that the ability to demonstrate your skills, your strengths, and your understanding of whatever subject that is, right? Whatever your theme is. You see how these are all kind of building on top of each other? That's why I feel like they all work hand in hand, and they are all staples in any of these examples we look at. So let's look at some examples of craftsmanship when we really see that attention to detail and we really see everything kind of on full force showcase. Pang. He really shows he has an understanding of the craft and of course what his interests are. He has mostly hard surface stuff, but he shows he has a very clear comprehension of how things work, maybe how things are put together, and that he has a very consistent overall style and delivery on this subject matter and genre. So right, we don't really see too many characters. We don't see too many pieces about light and color and composition. He is a problem solver. He is an idea factory, specializing in hard surface design, architecture, and military. So right, it's a little bit of a broad net, but he's got his focus, and that's what really makes this a strong body of work. And last, it's hard to have a really good strong body of work if you can't present it well. Like a average idea presented well becomes like a great idea in a sense, right? Your ability to sell your ideas and your body of work, right? And often, in more cases than not, what it comes down to is just really good lighting and really good composition. It's just an aspect of your body of work, right, that grabs a viewer's attention. And for my example on this one, let's look at, and I'll butcher the name, Joao Wang, right? Like you could see it in his cover photo here. An eye for detail, craftsmanship in the brushwork, really excellent lighting, through and through, and a good range of lighting. These images just jump off the page, through their thumbnail alone. They read very strong. They all have a fairly high impact. Even something simple like a portrait has nice form, volume, and subtle lighting to it. Very eye-pleasing. So guys, those are my personal pillars of what makes a great portfolio. I try to at least hit most of those notes on any piece I'd ever consider dropping in my own, and that's what I'll be looking for in a lot of ways for our examples today. Hey Adrian, so you're first up. Now, based off what you said, it seems like you're at a bit of a crossroads. You're not sure what exactly you want to pursue. Your work does have a little bit of everything, so this is the entire body of work. So regardless of what you need to do, you need a larger bulk of work, which is going to bring me to my first overall point. Your work needs to ultimately have a focus. I'm not saying you need to make this decision today or even tomorrow. And again, because I know you're kind of divided whether to do kind of more fine art things or do more game art, but you should decide, somewhere along those lines, because a portfolio doesn't need to be a record of everything you have ever learned or everything you're, entirely interested in. You're going to overwhelm any kind of potential employer, and what you want to do is convince them. You want to convince them you're the person for the job, and the best way to do that is have a very strong focused body of work. And when I say focused, that means if I click on your page, I know immediately what your strength is. And that's the problem here. You have like a plein air sort of environment, landscape art. You have a castle. It says concept art. It does feel a little more on the plein air side. It doesn't really break down a lot of aspects of the design, and it feels too simple and blocky. And then the rest of the work, this is like illustration. You have like prop design, and again more fine art stuff. So it's too jumbled. You want to find what that voice is, so you can make it very loud. So like I said, if I click on your page, I know exactly what your strength is. Hey, Summer Links, thank you for your submission. You're next up. The work is, getting really good. I'm getting really good vibes from this overall. And I believe you had a very specific question. How do you know you're ready, to start working? Honestly, I think it comes down to a number of things. It's both a combination of feeling, your own instincts, the volume of your work, to raw skill. If you see yourself building up a following or a reputation, in the actual field or industry for something, like your specific type of work, if you're constantly getting, recognized and stuff for like, oh, your characters are coming along great, or you're just like, maybe you're that environment guy that just constantly putting out, these joyous and places to visit and spectacles of wonder. And if you're basically kind of getting that reputation, if you start seeing requests, even the shitty ones, in regards to commissions, possible licensing opportunities, to working on smaller projects, that's also a very good sign. And of course, if you genuinely feel your work is as strong in some areas, it doesn't have to be in every area, as your peers that are already working, that's a good sign. And if your peers on social media even start to recognize your growth and accomplishments, and I think that was always a good sign. It's one of my huge turning points way back in the day, when my idols, when the people I looked at were either started following me or dropping me a line, that we all want to get recognized at the end of the day for our hard work, and that's a very good sign. And in regards to your actual work, if you feel you can consistently deliver on stuff, like if you have your process nailed down, if you understand your fundamentals, then that of course is a good sign. But I believe you specifically said you were into 2D environment art, and that's what you want to do. So with that said, I'm not seeing a lot of work here that shows that. This is more or less like an illustration portfolio. An illustration for what specifically, I'm not entirely sure yet, because you have a very nice, carefree, painterly style. I'm sure there's sort of projects, card projects, indie projects that would be, fairly well tailored for. And this shows that you have general interests in characters, in portraits, in people, in world building. It seems like you would naturally be a good fit for visual development, which they'd basically hire you onto a project to define the look and feel of it. But specifically environment art, there's nothing here that would tell me that. So this overall brings me to that second point I want to make. Based on the type of job you're going for, your body of work needs to show what your interests are, what you're good at, and what you can bring to the table. So if you were looking to more shift to more of a 2D environment art sort of design portfolio, you would need a lot more of this type of work that you could see on screen. You need a load of callouts, load of iterations. You need to show you have a strong understanding of the world, that you have an ability to solve problems, that you can iterate off many designs, that you have a good sense of color and light, and that you have an eye for detail. All right, and so that's what I'm not getting personally from your body of work. And if you want to make that shift, you just got to start a lot more personal projects. Hey Yarsh, thank you for dropping me a line as well. Now, it seemed like you were someone at a crossroads too. You're not sure whether you ultimately want to end up in the film or the game industry. And of course, if I had any suggestions for you up to this point. Basically, I think you're off to a strong start for game development art. There's nothing here, again, that tells me anything about film or like cinema. I don't see that sort of vibe from your work. If that's something you'd be more interested in, look at someone's art like Jan Urschel's. He has nothing but film-based projects. So if you click on bodies of work that's catered toward film, like something like this from Captain Marvel, you could see it's a whole body of work from Captain Marvel in it. It can kind of show what's expected in a lot of these cases and scenarios. So everything has a very kind of realistic sort of art directed and film-based lighting. There is a fairly high attention to detail. This is often a mix of photo bash and 3D. And I think knowing 3D on a very strong level is probably that massive gateway to really master to get into film, because you have to work very quickly in film, more so than in game art. And so with the speed, the 3D is going to help with the speed and the accuracy. And of course, having a very strong sense of lighting overall is what's really going to help you if you pursue that path. These are all good. I think these are good. They're clean. Your materials here are a little bit flat. Things are looking strong here. But overall, you need more work. This is just, your stepping stone. You need to keep going with things. keep producing what you're interested in. I'd say overall you need to give more context to props if you're going to keep doing props. Like, we don't know exactly how big this is or what it's for. So if you look at a body of work or a portfolio working in games now, often what's expected is that you'll have a lot more context to your design. So we know this place, we know the general scale of it based off a lot of the scaling of the elements, the props, the signs. We know where it's situated, so there's a little bit of weathering and weather to it. So it basically just explains a lot more of the overall context of a particular object or prop. Having multiple angles of your props as well is very helpful. So I could see you're already doing that. Keep going with it. If this is the type of work that you think you could really do well and flourish on, just keep doing more of it and think of that context. Now, this is bringing me to my third tip. Don't let your body of work be a mix of generic fan art, experimental images, and obvious school assignments. Literally plan it out. See, here's a little sample of some planning I was doing with this project. I didn't finish it, but I know, okay, I'm going to do a lineup of villagers. I want to show an illustration for everyday life. I want to do the home scene. I want to do the interior, do boat concepts. I literally was planning out, page for page, sheet for sheet, everything I needed to show for a project. And therefore, it will be a lot more planned. It'll be a lot more curated to your specific needs. Hey, Jenny, you're up next. Thanks for your submission here. Now, you expressed interest in working in, film and game, of course, as a concept designer, and you currently have a broken tablet, and of course you've been told you need more architectural based things, probably a stronger foundation in 3D, and I couldn't agree more. I think what you have here, again, you're building those fundamental skills, and I honestly think you need more time with that. I don't think the work is specifically there yet in terms of the overall fidelity or the quality that'll be expected. I'm not sure how you are with speed yet either, because you would need to produce not only quality, but quantity on a very consistent basis. And as you could see, a lot of the work ends up it still needs a lot of finesse. It needs a lot of fine tuning. And I think one of the biggest things you can continue to improve on is your color light and your overall brush work. A lot of your edges are very rough, very sloppy. And a lot of this is just fundamental stuff. You got to paint a lot more. You got to build a lot more. And one great way to do that, which is going to bring me to my fourth tip, is that start to emulate jobs. Because professionals build portfolios through jobs. Students, it's not possible. So set yourself up in regards to planning projects with personal projects. See, a lot of your work is just disconnected. You have fantasy stuff, you have portraits, you have some sci-fi stuff, but none of it is connected enough to deliver any sort of confidence in a potential employer that you would be the best person for this job, because you're just kind of dipping your toes in all these subjects, all these genres. So one professional that we can look at that does a lot of this stuff very well, that has these skills that you still want to hit, is someone like a Sung Choi here, right? Very good stuff on ArtStation. Again, he's developing his body of work through loads of projects. So for you and for a lot of us, that means doing multiple images based off of one idea that shows not only breakdowns and structural information as well as the context of scale and lighting, but it shows how it may look in game or how it may look in a frame. This is the best way you can continue to build your work. And see, this has every subject matter. We have sci-fi, we have breakdowns like this, which again, I recommend for everybody that wants to get into game design to just have breakdowns like this that show that you really understand and that you can solve these sort of problems. Having really amazing lighting on top of your ideas is going to be the icing on the cake. And see, there's just not any part of this image that feels too unfinished. There's just a consistency to it. So build that consistency through projects in your portfolio so that you can build that confidence in employers. Now, one question I got a few times from Biney and from Aglaya was, do I need to have two bodies of work or two portfolios for two different styles, or how many styles can I get away with? I would definitely recommend not going more than one or two styles, and I think having two styles, particularly if you're freelancing, is a great asset because it'll show your flexibility. Now, what, of course, as I mentioned, you want to do, if that's the case, you want to show consistency with those two styles. So just as a brief aside, like on my own site, I just have it organized into two styles. I'll put anything, any subject matter for the style. So this is my little bit more illustrative, more realistic one. I have environments, I have characters, I have illustration and narrative, but they're all just like a little more realistic. Then of course I have my stylized section of the Brush Sauce Studio page, and that's more visual development. It's more art directing, it's more stylized, it's more painterly. I think no matter what you do, no matter how many styles you want to push, the quality just needs to be there through and through. And I think as a good example of this, someone else that does this, Dave Raposa. Numerous styles. We have ink styles, we have comic styles, we have very classy sort of traditional illustration styles, we have film poster styles. He has like 6 different styles going on here, fine art sort of brushed styles. But when you click on any one of them, the quality of the work is absolutely outstanding. So if there's anything to learn from this, it's like it doesn't matter how many styles you have. As long as you're really good at it, nobody really cares. All right? So if you're still developing your foundational skills, yeah, you're going to want to probably focus on getting really, really good at one thing first, which is going to lead me to my last tip, for this video, is that get really good at one thing, one subject, one genre, one style first, right? It's going to help you create that focus, and it's going to really show what your strengths are. And you can't go wrong with that. I probably would advise not trying to be that jack of all trades to start. And I guess last up, I can fit you in as well, Aylin. Great body of work. You're specifically asking about work that kind of covers multiple types of portfolios and genres, which is a great place to kind of end, because we can talk about a few things. Largely, there's different types of portfolios, right? Like you have portfolios geared toward comics, some that are geared toward animation, others specifically concept art, visual development, and illustration. You can build a body of work that kind of blends some of those. I think a lot of people do that very successfully. Even someone like Clement here is doing that very well. See, he has a few bits of character stuff. You could see their characters for animation, so I think the glue behind having a multifaceted body of work like this is have a very consistent style, of course. So you'll see he will have breakdowns of props on one page, and then in the next he'll have something entirely different. And it's not as much about the style here, but it's just delivering that consistency of quality. Flesh out your ideas fully. So like in your case, right, if you're building a nice illustration like this, don't have it as a study in your portfolio. Flesh it out. Portfolios aren't places for studies, but you have a nice painting and you have a cool subject matter. So turn that subject matter into some sort of visual development. Do a lineup of buildings in this style. Show an interior of that shop and do a character sheet for the shop owner that lives there, right? So you could take something like a study, not advertise it as such, and build a body of work from it. Stuff like this that you have is absolutely great. And continue to build upon that. Mark Alexandra here, he's doing a lot of that as well. You'll see he will build up a body or a series of character illustrations, right? Again, it doesn't matter if they're loose or if they're really tight. The quality and the design information is all there across all his lineup, and then you could see these characters are directly tied to some sort of cinematic environment shot. And then with that cinematic environment shot, they have some nice alternative breakdowns, which is just great. So it shows a nice comprehension of what he's trying to show. It's selling me, the viewer, on his idea. And that's what you want to do, right? That's what the goal is with a lot of portfolios, is just to convince the viewer, heck, even potential employers, of your ideas, of your worlds, of your illustrations. So keep doing with that. I think in some instances some of the polish is a little flat or muddy in places, but your work is very close and it's very strong. And I think within a year you're going to be producing work that's even twice as strong. So for example, right, if you have this great little excavator here, put that into a full-on illustration or show like some kind of breakdown or multiple turnarounds of that as well. Like, this is absolutely great. Now just build upon that context. Hey everybody, thank you for watching. Let me know, of course, down below if you have any questions about anything that I went over. If you want to see this type of video again, also let me know. And of course, I want to thank my supporters over on Patreon at this time. It means a lot to me. They will be getting a version of this video with some added content. And I just want to remind you, there's no size fits all. There's no definitive answer when it comes to portfolios. Just generally find what you really enjoy doing. Do that really well. The work will come to you. Your audience will build and grow, and your heart will be all in it. Alright guys, so take care. Guys, thanks for watching. Please hit the subscribe if you want to see more. You can check me out on Facebook, ArtStation, and Instagram. If you want more in-depth content from me, I teach 2 courses at the CG Master Academy, Architecture Design and Fundamentals of Design. If you want even more learning, you can go to brushsauceacademy.com and sign up for one-on-one mentoring. Join the hundreds of students around the world and start improving your art and design today. If you want to be part of a community, we have Brush Sauce on Discord. We have monthly challenges and hangouts. There are links below for everything I mentioned. Thanks again for watching and take care.